The moment that gold band left her finger, I didn't see a wedding ring anymore. I saw a grenade pin being pulled. It hit my chest, bounced once, then skidded across the hardwood floor with this tiny little spin, like it was performing one last dance before dying. And the sound? That metallic clink against the wood? That's gonna live in my head forever. I'm 29, married 4 years, living in one of those Capitol Hill apartments with the exposed brick walls you're supposed to post on Instagram. We had the whole young professional thing down pat. Sunday farmers markets, artisanal coffee, pasta nights where we'd open a bottle of wine and pretend we had it all figured out. Friends would literally comment goals on our photos. But looking back now, I was collecting red flags for 8 weeks before that night and convincing myself they were just decorations. Before I go any further, if you're into real-life stories that'll make your jaw drop, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to Anonymous Confessions. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. It started small. She'd go out after work with the team from her marketing startup, late nights that stretched until midnight. She'd come home smelling like vodka and cheap bar soap, and I'd be there on the couch pretending to watch something, pretending I wasn't watching the clock. I'm not the jealous type, never have been, so when she'd give me one-word answers and disappear into the shower before I could ask follow-up questions, I told myself she was just tired, stressed. It's a season, right? Marriage has seasons. Then her phone got a passcode. Not a big deal, I thought. Privacy is healthy. She started deleting messages right in front of me, like it was nothing, like I was furniture. And I kept telling myself the same lie. This is temporary. This is a phase. Here's what nobody tells you about marriage. You could be standing in the middle of a train wreck and still convince yourself you're just reorganizing furniture. That Friday started normal. I made carbonara, her favorite, garlic bread, the whole production. 7 o'clock came and went. 8 o'clock, 9. I ate alone, scraped her plate into the fridge, and put on some Netflix show I wasn't actually watching. She walked in at 7:12. I know the exact time because I checked my watch when the door clicked. And here's the thing that still creeps me out. She wasn't drunk. She was sober. Stone cold sober and deliberate. She looked at me like a stranger she happened to share an address with. I asked if she wanted me to heat up her dinner. She laughed. Not a nice laugh. Sharp, like glass breaking. "I'm 27, she said, dropping her bag on the couch. "I'm living like I'm 40. I'm done playing house. Done pretending this is enough. Done acting like we're perfect while I feel like I'm disappearing." I stayed calm. That's what I do. I stay calm and try to fix things with words. I suggested we talk. She cut me off, said there was nothing to talk about, no reasonable conversation where I could logic my way back into her good graces. Then she did it. She yanked that ring off her finger, held it up between us like it was evidence of a crime. "This ring," she said, "is a symbol of me disappearing." And she threw it, straight at my chest. It hit, fell, and that sound? God, that sound. The ring spinning on the hardwood, louder than any argument we'd ever had. "I'm single tonight," she said, grabbed her purse, told me not to wait up, not to call, not to do anything. And then she was gone. I stood there for maybe 10 minutes just staring at that closed door. And here's the weird part. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. I felt this strange clarity, like someone had flipped on every light in a dark room I didn't even know I was standing in. She had just told me, in front of God and our exposed brick walls, that she considered herself single. Not separated, not needing space, single. So I picked up the ring, but instead of putting it somewhere sentimental, I set it on the kitchen counter under the bright light, like evidence at a crime scene. Then I pulled out my phone and took 3 photos from different angles. I created a new folder, labeled it Evidence, because here's what I realized in that moment. When someone discards the symbol of your bond and declares themselves single, they're not asking for space. They're handing you your entire case. This is exactly the kind of story that keeps me up at night. And if you're loving this so far, don't forget to like and subscribe to Anonymous Confessions. Drop a comment if you've ever had a moment where you knew everything was about to change. I opened my notes app and wrote down everything. Her arrival time, her exact words as best I could remember them, the fact that she threw the ring, the fact that she left after declaring herself single. I checked our phone plan, confirmed my cloud backup was active. Then I called her, straight to voicemail. 20 minutes later, I tried again. Voicemail. On the fifth try, around 9:30, she picked up. I could hear it all. Bass pounding, people shouting over music, men laughing close by. She yelled at me, asked what I wanted. I asked if she was safe, where she was. She laughed and said she was at a club, doing something I couldn't possibly understand. Then I heard it, a man's voice, muffled, right next to her. Then her giggle. She repeated it. She wasn't my wife tonight. She was free to do whatever she wanted with whoever she wanted. Then she hung up. I saved the call log, took a screenshot, backed it up, sat on the couch and just breathed. This wasn't a fight. This wasn't a rough patch. This was a unilateral decision to destroy our marriage, and she was documenting it herself. At 10:15, my phone buzzed. A picture. She was at some rooftop bar, seated between two men I'd never seen, her arm draped around one of them, drinking, smiling wide. The caption, "Bet you wish you were more fun." I stared at it for a long time, not just because it hurt, it did, but because I realized she had just handed me everything I needed. I took screenshots, backed them up in 3 different places, created a folder in my email with precise timestamps. I didn't reply. I didn't react. I didn't give her anything she could twist later. I just preserved it. By 11 o'clock, I was at the kitchen table with my laptop open, searching for divorce attorneys in D.C. Found one with strong reviews, specialty in high conflict cases. At 11:58, I called his emergency line. He answered on the 3rd ring. I gave him the shortest summary possible. Wife threw ring, declared herself single, left, sent photos with other men, said she was doing whatever she wanted with whoever she wanted. There was a pause. Then he said something that made my whole body relax. She just gave you the entire case. He told me not to delete anything, not to contact her unless she reached out first, meet him Monday morning at 8. I hung up and realized I wasn't scared anymore. I was finished. She probably thought this was punishment, that she could live out her single fantasy and return to me waiting like a scolded child, ready to apologize for being boring. But when she walked back through that door, the paperwork would already be in motion. I slept better that night than I had in 2 months. She came home Sunday morning around 10:30. I heard her key in the lock. Her bag hit the floor. Her footsteps slowed when she saw me at the kitchen table, coffee in hand, laptop open. She looked rough. Mascara smeared, hair messy, same dress from Friday night. She tried that apologetic little smile, the one we used to share after stupid fights about chores. "Hey," she said, quiet, asked if we could talk. I looked up and said, "Check your email." Confusion crossed her face. She pulled out her phone, and I watched her expression shift. Eyes widened, mouth fell open. She stared at me like I'd burned the apartment down. "What the hell is this?" she demanded, holding up the phone. "Divorce papers." I sipped my coffee and reminded her calmly she threw her ring, declared herself single. I was just taking her at her word. She started pacing, hands trembling, insisted it was just one night. She was angry. She didn't mean it. I stayed composed and pointed out the evidence, the photo with 2 men, the mocking caption, her recorded declaration that she was doing whatever she wanted with whoever she wanted. She stopped pacing. Her voice went sharp. Accused me of recording her, called it controlling, said this is exactly why she needed space. I shook my head, explained the difference between documenting and controlling. She tried another tactic, sat across from me, reached for my hand. I pulled back. She insisted she made a mistake, felt trapped, acted out, but she loved me, didn't want this. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing. You didn't act out. You made deliberate choices. Threw away your ring, declared yourself single, went out with other men, sent me proof. Tears streamed down her face. She asked if one bad night meant I was throwing away years, if I didn't even want to try. I stood up, poured my coffee down the sink, and asked her, Who threw away the years? Look, stories like this remind me why I love this channel. Real people, real pain, real decisions. If you're still watching, hit that like button and subscribe to Anonymous Confessions. Drop a comment if you've ever had a moment where you knew everything was about to change. I told her I'd met with an attorney Saturday, Richard, mid-50s, sharp suit, the kind of man who clears his weekend for urgent calls. I showed him everything, the ring photos, timestamps, call recordings, her photo, her exact words. He laid it all out on the desk like he was preparing for trial. The lease was in my name, full deposit, utilities paid by me, joint accounts, but I was the primary earner. She made about 60% of my income. No kids, no shared property beyond furniture. By Saturday afternoon, the groundwork was complete. I told her the reality Sunday afternoon after her tears and yelling and every angle she tried. The lease was in my name. She needed to pack. She looked at me like I'd spoken a foreign language, asked where she was supposed to go. I shrugged, reminded her she'd asked for independence, asked to be single. She argued, insisted she had rights, that I couldn't force her out. I opened a lease on my laptop, showed her my name, all the documentation, deposits, utility setups, every payment. I'm not saying this to be cruel, I told her, but you can stay with friends, your sister. Figure it out. You're not staying here. She unleashed every insult she could think of, called me cruel, said I was punishing her, claimed this wasn't the man she married. I just stood there and waited until she ran out of words. Then I said what had been on my mind since Friday night. The man you married would have stayed up, forgiven you, let you walk all over him, but that man doesn't exist anymore. She packed 2 bags, crying nonstop, slamming drawers, muttering that I'd regret this. The moment she left, I changed the door code, emailed the building manager, then spent the rest of Sunday taking down every wedding photo, every frame, every snapshot of us smiling on some beach or at a friend's party, boxed them up, put them in storage. The apartment felt bigger without them, cleaner, like I could finally breathe. Monday morning, Richard filed a petition electronically. By Monday afternoon, it was official. By Wednesday morning, she was served at her office. I know because her sister called me screaming, furious about how humiliating it was. I kept my voice steady and told her to have my wife contact my attorney. Then I hung up, blocked her sister, her mom, anyone on her side who might start a guilt campaign. My phone blew up for an hour. Texts from numbers I didn't recognize. People telling me I was making a huge mistake, that I was rash, that marriage was about forgiveness. I deleted every single one. Funny how strangers always have the strongest opinions about situations they've never lived. Around 4 that Wednesday, she appeared in my building's lobby. The front desk called, asked if I wanted her sent up. I said no. Tell her I'm not available. But I went down anyway. Knew she wouldn't leave without saying what she came to say. She stood by the elevators, dressed to impress, hair perfect, makeup flawless, wearing the dress I'd always liked. When she saw me, her whole face lit up, like this time she'd succeed. She walked toward me, pleaded for just 5 minutes. I crossed my arms. Say what you need to say. She inhaled, struggled to organize her thoughts, admitted she'd been horrible, knew it, didn't deny it, but insisted it was one night of stupidity, and I was ready to throw everything away. I didn't move. Told her it wasn't one night. It was 8 weeks of distance, deleted messages, late nights, then a night she made it official. She reached for my hand. I stepped back. She confessed she was scared. Scared of losing me, scared of being alone, terrified she'd destroyed the best thing in her life. Her tears were real now. I looked at her and for a moment almost felt something, but you can't throw a grenade and then expect to piece it back together. She sobbed, asked if that was it, if 4 years were gone just like that. I nodded. "It is." I returned upstairs. She didn't follow. I watched from my window as she lingered in the lobby for 10 more minutes before finally stepping into the street and hailing an Uber. My phone buzzed once more. A text from her. "You will regret this." I deleted it, blocked her number, sat down on the couch. Silence filled the apartment. For the first time in months, it didn't feel suffocating. It felt like mine. Thursday, Richard called. She lawyered up, asking for spousal support and half the apartment's value. I wasn't surprised. I asked if she could actually get it. He laughed. She could ask, but we had documentation of abandonment, her declaration of being single, a lease in my name with proof of my sole financial contribution. Preliminary hearing set for 6 weeks out. He warned me to expect her to play the victim. I was ready. The hearing was a Thursday morning. I showed up in a suit, Richard at my side, folder of printed evidence in hand. He said judges still appreciate paper. She arrived 10 minutes late with her attorney, a guy in his 30s who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. She dressed conservatively, minimal makeup, hair pulled back, the whole wronged wife presentation. We sat on opposite sides. She refused to meet my gaze, whispered to her lawyer, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. The judge was a woman in her 50s, no-nonsense expression, ran through preliminaries quickly. Her attorney went first, painted me as cold and impulsive, said I filed for divorce over a single argument, kicked my wife out with nowhere to go, refused all attempts at reconciliation, framed it like I abandoned her. Then Richard stood, laid the evidence on the table like cards in a game, photos of the ring on the floor, audio from her phone call at the club where she declared herself single, the text with her photo between 2 men, and that mocking caption. Her attorney tried to object, claimed the recording was obtained without consent. Richard had confirmed DC's one-party consent law. The judge examined the photo for a long moment, then looked at my wife and asked directly if she'd sent it. She nodded, voice barely audible, said she was drunk and angry, didn't mean it. The judge asked what she meant by telling her husband she was single and going out with other men. She started crying, said she felt suffocated, needed space, made a terrible mistake. The judge didn't look sympathetic, just tired. Asked me if I intended to reconcile. "No," I said. "Trust is gone. This cannot be repaired." The judge granted temporary orders. I retained the apartment, joint accounts frozen pending asset division, no spousal support until the final hearing. Both of us ordered to attend one mediation session before trial. Her attorney argued for temporary support, said she had nowhere to live. Richard countered she abandoned the marriage, had no claim to pre-marriage property. Her actions were thoroughly documented. The mediator sided with us. Outside the courtroom, she tried to approach me. Richard stepped between them, reminded her all communication had to go through attorneys. She looked at me over his shoulder, red-eyed, asked if I really felt nothing. I didn't answer, just walked away. That week, she launched a subtle social media campaign, posts about heartbreak, betrayal, people showing their true colors. Friends flooded the comments with insults directed at me. I didn't engage, just screenshotted everything and sent it to Richard. My friends reached out, asked what happened. I gave them the short version. She threw her ring, declared herself single, went out with other men, sent proof. I filed. Most weren't surprised. A few had noticed changes over the previous months, her pulling away at gatherings, constant phone use. One buddy said he'd seen her at a bar a few weeks earlier getting close with some guy while I was supposedly working late. I wished he'd told me then, but understood why he didn't. Nobody wants to deliver that kind of news. Mediation was 3 weeks later, Monday afternoon, downtown conference room. Me and Richard, her and her attorney, a mediator with decades of experience.
Her attorney laid out demands: half the apartment's appreciated value, half my retirement contributions during marriage, coverage of her moving expenses and first month's rent. Richard countered with my offer: $15,000 lump sum, roughly equal to her financial contributions to shared expenses, if she signed off on all other claims. Her attorney called it insufficient. Richard pointed out she abandoned the marriage, had no claim to pre-marriage property. Her actions were thoroughly documented. The mediator suggested a break. Her attorney took her into the hallway. Richard told me to stay firm. They were posturing and knew their leverage was limited. When they returned, she asked if she could speak to me directly. The mediator said it could be allowed if both attorneys agreed. Richard looked at me. I nodded. She looked across the table, voice trembling. "Is there any chance at all we could fix this?" I'd known this question was coming, prepared for it, but hearing her actually ask felt strange. I looked at the person I'd spent 4 years with, the one I'd planned a future with, and saw a stranger. "No," I said, voice steady. She closed her eyes like I'd struck her. When she opened them, they burned with anger instead of sadness. "I hate you," she said, loud enough that the mediator shifted uncomfortably. Accused me of giving up, being cold, not even trying. I didn't respond, just waited for her to finish. "Okay," I said. "Finally, that makes this easier." Her attorney placed a hand on her arm, whispered something. She sank back in her
chair, breathing heavily. We settled at $15,000. She signed the release. The divorce would finalize in 60 days. As she left, she paused at the door, glanced back once. No words, just a look, like she was memorizing my face or trying to understand how we'd arrived here. Then she walked out. Richard shook my hand. "You handled that perfectly. Most men would have folded under the emotional pressure." 60 days later, the court email arrived. Dissolution finalized. Marriage legally over. I sat at my desk, stared at the PDF attachment for a moment. Years of my life reduced to a file. I forwarded it to my personal email for records, then got back to work. That weekend, I transformed the apartment, moved furniture, bought new sheets, rearranged art. I wanted the space to feel mine, not ours, not a museum of something dead. I started running again, something I'd stopped after marriage because she said I spent too much time on it. Took a weekend trip to Portland, just me, no schedule, no plan. 3 months later, I got the promotion I'd been working toward, but had neglected while distracted. My life started feeling like mine again, living it, not performing it. People ask if I'm dating. I say not yet. I need time to remember who I was outside of being a husband. I don't miss her. I miss the idea of stability, partnership, but not her specifically. And that tells me everything I need to know about the choice I made. So what do you think? Would you have done the same? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read them all. And if you made it this far, hit that like button and subscribe to Anonymous Confessions for more real-life stories that'll make you think. This story taught me that respect and trust aren't negotiable. They're the foundation. When someone shows you through their actions that they don't value what you built together, responding accordingly isn't cruelty. It's self-respect. Documentation wasn't about revenge. It was about protecting myself from someone rewriting the story. And that's where it all ended.